Hey everyone, buckle up, it's time for an epic ride. Late in the morning, Junwoo wakes up to find a hastily written note left by his family. The note explains that they had to leave in a hurry, but they left him enough money for groceries. Rather than heading to the store, Junwoo decides to log on and play video games online with his friends for his livestream. However, their fun is abruptly interrupted when one of the players urges him to check the news because something major is unfolding. The moment Junwoo turns on the TV, the regular program is cut short by an emergency broadcast. A reporter appears on screen, solemnly announcing that an apocalypse is underway. Almost simultaneously, an emergency text buzzes on Junwoo's phone. When he looks out the window, the sight that greets him is nothing short of horrifying. Zombies have overrun the city, and terrified humans are running chaotically in every direction. The streets are plunged into utter chaos. Vehicles crash into one another, triggering small explosions all around. In one distressing moment, a young girl cries out for her mother. When her mother finally finds her, the child begins to viciously attack her. From inside his building, Junwoo can hear the sounds of chaos and violence echoing down the corridor. When Junwoo opens the door to the hallway, his neighbor Sang-chul bursts in, pleading for permission to stay. He explains that his zombified brother has taken over their apartment. Junwoo initially tries to eject him, but Sang-chul resists, persistently blocking the door. In the end, Junwoo reluctantly agrees to let him use the bathroom, on the condition that he promises to leave as soon as he's finished. Moments later, Junwoo hears on the TV that a mysterious infection is rapidly spreading throughout the country, causing people to transform. The reported symptoms include violent, aggressive behavior and severe eye bleeding, eventually leading to cannibalistic tendencies. Alarmed, Junwoo snatches a knife and points it at Sang-chul as he emerges from the bathroom, noticing a peculiar scar on his hand. Sang-chul insists that he's fine, but in an instant his eyes turn blood red and he begins convulsing as his veins darken. Suddenly, he snarls and lunges at Junwoo. After a brief struggle, Junwoo manages to push him back and forcefully kicks him out of the apartment. After a tense scuffle, Junwoo secures the door with a lock. Through the peephole, he watches in horror as a large zombie overpowers Sang-chul and drags him away. Soon he sees blood seeping under the door into his apartment. Determined to block any further intrusion, Junwoo pushes his refrigerator in front of the front door. He repeatedly attempts to call his family, only to be informed by the operator that he is currently unable to connect. Thankfully, a text message arrives from his mother, assuring him that they are safe, even though they cannot return home. She implores him to stay indoors and to do whatever it takes to survive. On the television, a reporter explains that people should have enough food and water for 60 days, a fact that fills Junwoo with regret for not having gone to the grocery store. In an effort to preserve his remaining supplies, Junwoo rations his food carefully and scribbles, "You must survive" on a post-it, which he hangs on a family photograph. The following morning, a professor appears on TV explaining that the zombie outbreak is caused by a mutated virus that specifically targets the right side of the brain. Although Junwoo still cannot place any calls, he observes countless posts on social media where people are searching for their loved ones and sharing their addresses under the hashtag #alive. Hoping to attract help, Junwoo snaps a selfie while holding a sign that displays his address, and he posts it with the hashtag #IMustSurvive. He also watches a video showing a man hanging out of a very tall building with his phone mounted on a selfie stick, streaming live as he struggles to find a better signal. The video abruptly ends when the man suddenly falls. Meanwhile, the TV report informs viewers that individuals infected with the virus remain asymptomatic for a few minutes before undergoing a terrifying transformation. In a bid to survey the situation, Junwoo deploys a drone to inspect the apartments in his building, only to discover that nearly every unit is occupied by zombies. In the process, he accidentally makes a phone call to his father, which drains the battery, forcing the drone to return. Attempting to distract himself, Junwoo turns to playing an online game. But just as he gets immersed, the internet connection goes down. Later in the evening, a blaring car alarm outside his building rouses him from his uneasy rest. Peeking out the window, Junwoo sees a police officer firing at fellow officers who have turned into zombies. Tragically, the officer runs out of bullets, and while he is reloading, the zombies pounce on her, biting her several times before dragging her into another street, where more of the undead await. Junwoo yells at the zombies in a futile attempt to distract them, but they only pause briefly before resuming their ravenous assault on the cop. Suddenly, the large zombie from earlier starts pounding on the door until it manages to push aside the refrigerator and force the door open. Junwoo rushes to confront it, but his strength fails him, so he flees to the balcony and leaps over the railing. As the zombie pursues him, it stumbles and falls off the balcony, crashing to the ground, while Junwoo clings to safety. From his vantage point, he sees the horde of zombies in the distance and notices that the police officer has also transformed. Afterward, Junwoo takes extra precautions to secure his door, but he is dismayed to find that during the zombies' entry, most of his food supplies have been destroyed. That night, overwhelmed by fear and despair, he records a video for his online followers, expressing his terror over the unfolding apocalypse. On the 7th day, Junwoo begins to drink his father's liquor and hastily covers the windows with colored paper to conceal his presence from the outside world. Later, TV news reveals that the infection spreads only through blood contact, meaning that as long as one avoids bites and stab wounds, they might remain safe. The zombies, however, have evolved. Many now possess enhanced strength, sensory abilities, and even display normal human behaviors such as opening doors and resuming their old jobs. After watching a particularly enticing commercial, Junwoo eats a bowl of ramen, only to notice too late a post-it note attached to the bowl warning that this might be his last meal. In his frustration, he knocks over his water bottle, and when he goes to refill it, he discovers that no running water remains in the apartment. Desperate, he resorts to sucking the few remaining drops from the table. By the 10th day, Junwoo records another video, voicing his frustration with the static-filled messages on TV, urging everyone to stay home. He is desperate to leave, yet he is trapped by the ever-present threat of zombies outside. He recalls an emergency app with a radio show that could serve as an antenna via an audio jack, but unfortunately, he only has wireless earphones. On the 15th day, in a bid to cope with his isolation, Junwoo resorts to dancing around his apartment. Just then, he hears a noise and is astonished to see his family returning. This fleeting moment of happiness is short-lived, as he quickly realizes he must be hallucinating, overwhelming him with despair until he collapses, losing all hope. Suddenly, he is startled by a voice message. He hears his mother urging him to stay home, though the message is riddled with static and barely intelligible. Emulating a man from a video he once saw, Junwoo climbs onto the balcony with a selfie stick, listening intently to the voice message as the zombies outside wait ominously for him to falter. Unfortunately, the message abruptly ends when a zombie attacks his family, an event that may well signal their doom. This final shock causes Junwoo to snap. In a frenzied outburst, he begins destroying everything in the living room, though the rampage proves insufficient to assuage his mounting frustration. He storms outside and begins striking a nearby zombie with a golf club until it collapses. As he screams for reinforcements, he rounds a corner and finds a zombified Sang-chul. While one zombie might not terrify him, his yelling has now drawn a whole horde. Panicking, Junwoo races to the elevator and flings open the door, only to be met by an onslaught of additional zombies. Terrified, he sprints away and manages to hide just in time. Once the horde dissipates, he cautiously makes his way back to his apartment. A new zombie lurks nearby, but since it is blind, Junwoo waits until it shuffles away before dashing inside and quickly locking the door. Yet the commotion alerts the zombies outside, and they begin to gather once more. On the 20th day, Junwoo rushes to the window upon hearing distant explosions and learns that the city is under bombing. Believing the end is near, he records a brief video in which he utters only "hello" and "goodbye" before climbing onto a stool and preparing to self-delete. As he awaits his fate, a laser beam suddenly shines through the window, targeting the word "no" on a hastily scrawled sign. Struggling with the rope he's been tied to, Junwoo finally frees himself and reads the message projected by the laser. "Don't be a moron." Looking out the window, he sees Yubin watching him from her apartment through binoculars. They exchange a series of silent hand gestures and agree to meet again at 7 o'clock. A brief glimpse into Yubin's apartment reveals that she is remarkably organized, stocked with an array of survival tools. She has even rigged a booby trap by her door and tends to her plant, sharing water with it. The next morning, Junwoo oversleeps and peeks out the window at 11. Feeling pity for him, Yubin ventures out to greet him, and through a combination of gestures and a few exchanged words on their phones, they briefly introduce themselves. At that moment, Yubin hears a disturbance and informs Junwoo that they should meet again at 7. She then grabs her axe and turns around, only to find a zombie ensnared in her trap. Gathering her courage, she dispatches the creature with a swift blow. Later that night, as rain begins to fall, both Junwoo and Yubin collect water in their pots and set their plant outside for nourishment. Glancing up at Junwoo's building, Yubin notices that the 8th floor is eerily empty. The next morning, Junwoo wakes up early, but is weakened by hunger. Concerned, Yubin attempts to toss a length of rope toward his balcony using a makeshift ball, but it drops to the ground. In response, Junwoo deploys his drone with extra rope. Once securely tied, Yubin sends him a bag filled with food, along with a note urging him to eat slowly. At that moment, Junwoo observes that the ball has been seized by a zombie firefighter, who begins tugging at the rope. The table on the other end is dragged through the apartment, striking Yubin and knocking her unconscious. The zombie firefighter then starts climbing the rope. Junwoo hurls empty bottles in an attempt to thwart him, but none hit their mark. Desperate, he sends his drone near the firefighter in hopes of dislodging him. The drone manages to scratch the zombie firefighter's cheek, but the creature continues swatting at it. Junwoo must carefully dodge every move as the situation intensifies. When the zombies start pounding on his door, his concentration falters, causing the drone to fall. He regains control just in time, but the firefighter seizes the opportunity to snatch and destroy the drone. Before the firefighter can resume his ascent, Yubin awakens and, with swift precision, cuts off his hand, forcing him to plummet. While Yubin examines her bruises in a mirror, Junwoo sends a quick message on his phone reading, "Stay strong." Later, Junwoo realizes that their food supplies are dwindling once again and reminds himself that he must survive for his family. After fashioning makeshift protection for his feet and head, he stealthily leaves the apartment in the dead of night. The corridors are littered with bodies, including that of Sang-chul. Junwoo quietly gathers his keys and, mindful of the lurking zombies, slips into Sang-chul's apartment. There, he scavenges for food from the fridge, collects a pair of headphones, a jacket, and a set of walkie-talkies. While searching the bed, he lifts the covers to reveal a dead woman. Just then, he is ambushed by Sang-chul's zombified brother, who tackles him to the ground. Thinking quickly, Junwoo uses the dead woman as a makeshift shield, allowing him to roll away and flee. As he escapes, the zombie gives chase, but Junwoo manages to hurl a metal bar at it, slowing its pursuit and securing his safe return to his apartment. After snacking briefly, Junwoo repurposes his headphone wires as an antenna for his phone, but the radio app remains unresponsive. Undeterred, he sends a bag of supplies back to Yubin, including a walkie-talkie and some food sourced from his neighbors. They exchange supportive messages over the radio, and it is revealed that Yubin has also contemplated self-deletion. During lunch, the two prepare noodles simultaneously to simulate sharing a meal, and then they spend the entire afternoon talking. Yubin confesses that she has been afraid of heights ever since a childhood fall. Suddenly, they hear a loud noise and initially assume it to be rain. However, when they look outside, they see every zombie in the vicinity sprinting simultaneously. Amid the chaos as survivors scramble through their buildings, they strive to remain as quiet as possible. However, Yubin accidentally knocks over a shelf, and the ensuing clatter attracts the attention of the zombies. Terrified, Yubin believes all is lost, but Junwoo recalls that all the building's units are interconnected. He calls out to Yubin's neighbor, whose ringing phone causes the zombies to momentarily disperse from her door. With danger mounting on the lower floors, Yubin informs Junwoo about an empty apartment on the 8th floor, and they agree to rendezvous there. Junwoo wants to formulate a plan, but before he can, Yubin uses a table and some rope to leap through an open window, landing safely on the ground. Immediately, the zombies pursue her. Demonstrating impressive agility and combat skills, Yubin either outruns or fends them off using her axe, and even repurposes car doors as makeshift weapons. As she nears another building, she inadvertently discovers and seizes a police officer's gun. Although a zombie attempts to attack her, Junwoo intervenes by striking it with a golf club. Now the duo is able to fight together effectively. They continue to eliminate zombies as they make their way toward a nearby building using abandoned cars as cover. Once inside, they quickly close the door and dash for the elevator just before the glass shatters from a zombie assault. They eventually reach the 8th floor and begin searching for an unlocked apartment. Suddenly, they hear a noise and realize that zombies have infiltrated the corridors as well. Yu-bin dashes to locate an open door while Junwoo barricades the corridor with available objects to buy them time. At that moment, a masked man emerges through a door. After shoving Yu-bin into his apartment, he throws a gas explosive at the approaching zombies, allowing Junwoo to sprint in and join him. After the masked man secures the door, Yu-bin admits she is wary, as the apartment was supposed to be vacant. However, the man proves to be amiable and even shares some food and water with them. He then drops a bombshell. Since he resides on a high floor, he occasionally picks up radio signals and has learned that a rescue team is en route. Overjoyed, Yu-bin and Junwoo are elated until Junwoo suddenly passes out. It turns out that the man had secretly sedated the water, leaving him incapacitated. Yu-bin, who only took a mere sip, remains just dizzy, while the man manages to tie her hands up. He drags her into another room and locks her in with his zombified wife, whose blood-stained walls suggest she has already consumed her own baby. Pulling a rope from outside, the man releases his wife, explaining that he merely wants her to sustain herself like him. At that moment, Junwoo awakens and points his gun at the man, demanding that he reconsider his actions. The man, however, refuses to negotiate and drops the rope. Junwoo lunges to retrieve it, but as the man scrambles for a knife, Yu-bin continues to struggle fiercely against the zombie. Their struggle intensifies until Junwoo loses grip on the rope. He rushes toward the door but finds it locked and the man shoves him away. In a desperate move, Yu-bin presses a baby's blanket against the zombified wife's face, and Yu-bin pushes his wife onto him, causing them both to topple. The zombie then bites her husband, who clings to her and murmurs, "I love you." Before he can transform, Yu-bin shoots them both dead. The sound of the gunfire immediately draws a horde of zombies on the street, which begin to rush toward the building. Yu-bin hands the weapon to Junwoo and urges him to put an end to the chaos, but at first, he refuses. Her plea eventually convinces him, and with tears streaming down his face, Junwoo readies his gun. Just then, they hear a sudden noise. Rescue helicopters have finally arrived. Determined to survive, the duo tosses another gas explosive into the corridor and clears a path by pushing aside a cluster of zombies to reach the stairs. Unfortunately, a massive group of zombies quickly converges, grabbing Yu-bin in the process. She defends herself with her axe, while Junwoo hastily retrieves a bicycle to block their path, allowing her to crawl free from the mass. Junwoo convinces her to flee to the roof while he buys them time. Yu-bin scrambles upward, but soon she loses sight of the helicopters. After much effort, Junwoo manages to push the zombies a few steps downward and runs upstairs, barricading the roof door with ladders. Realizing that no helicopters are visible, Junwoo starts shouting, "We're still alive!" as both he and Yu-bin cry in despair. Suddenly, the zombie horde bursts through the door, and Junwoo opens fire. Despite his valiant efforts, he only manages to kill a few zombies before running out of ammunition. At that moment, a rescue helicopter finally appears, and armed soldiers begin to hold the zombies at bay, allowing Junwoo and Yu-bin to board the chopper and finally escape. Once the helicopter lifts off and leaves the besieged city, Junwoo's phone miraculously regains signal. He receives reassuring messages from his family, all confirming that they are safe. Gazing out over the city from afar, Junwoo recalls the countless posts on social media from survivors eagerly awaiting rescue, and he imagines that his desperate hashtag, "I must survive," might soon be replaced with the hopeful word, "alive." Thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe and check out our other videos. See you next time.